Well, the Southern Poverty Law Center has identified the Family Research Council as one of its hate groups. The FRC, needless to say, does not appreciate it.
We were opposed to the overturning of of the sodomy laws in the Lawrence v. Texas case, and for a reason. We think to be silent when it comes to homosexual behavior that's both harmful to society and, more importantly, to the individuals who engage in it, to be silent, that is, in fact, hateful.
A few years ago, they put out a pamphlet called Homosexual Behavior and Pedophilia, in which they said that a part of the so-called homosexual agenda was to destroy, to get rid of all age of consent laws having to do with sexual behavior. And then the Family Research Council went on to say that, in fact, homosexual activists, in their words, were working to make pedophiles the kind of apostles, the prophets of a new sexual order.
If you go back to the Archives of Sexual Behavior, a peer-reviewed journal that stated that in self-identified 86% of men homosexual men who engage, or men who engaged in molestation of children, 86% of them identified as homosexual or bisexual. That study has not been refuted. And that is in part what's based upon, that statement was based upon. If you look at the American College of Pediatricians, they say the research is overwhelming that homosexuality poses a risk to children. So Mark is wrong.
Well, we need to note right now that the group Perkins sourced, the American College of Pediatricians, is not the same group as the American Academy of Pediatrics, but a group of about 100 conservative-minded doctors that formed in 2002 in response to the Academy's support of gay parental rights.
And again, back to Tony Perkins' statement tonight, he goes on to list 12% of the military surveyed threatened to leave the service. Then he lists all the Republicans who voted for this, and he says at the end, are they prepared to accept the responsibility for losing those 264,600 soldiers, meaning if they leave the military? And he goes on to say this, and others who may be injured or killed because of their votes. Injured or killed because gays are going to be allowed to serve openly in the military? It's controversial. It's going to be tough for some people. All social change is, you think it's wrong, he thinks it's right, but injured or killed?
In the snack car, in the bar car, in the very next seat, there's no escape from gays on a train. The Family Research Council wants to stop America's trains from becoming a trainbow. Just listen to the FRC Action Alert, quote, if there was ever proof that the Obama administration had gone off the rails, it's Amtrak. In a very real sense, this ad campaign is a federal endorsement of homosexual behavior, one of the most serious public health threats in America. Using taxpayer funds to promote this ad campaign is insulting to the millions of Americans who have deeply held moral convictions against homosexuality. Yet Washington is targeting the demographically small homosexual population, probably because marketing surveys suggest it is also one of the richest. So let's be honest, this administration is more interested in riding the gravy train than getting the culture back on track. So if Obama has his way, the glam track will be swarming with gays, rich gays, reading their rich gay magazines, listening to their rich gay iPods, feeling like they have the freedom to go wherever they want. And who knows where that attitude could lead? Gays on a plane?
I believe it's very, very important for kids to learn about differences and to accept differences. This is one of the problems that we have in our country right now regarding bullying, that kids identify others as being different and they pick on them. So it's very important to deal with gender identity as it is important to deal with disability, because kids are harassed because of disability. So it's an important area to cover with all kids.
Tony, what do you think?
Well, let me first say, as a parent of 5 children, I agree with Edward that the stated purpose here to deal with the issue of bullying, our children should be able to go into a safe environment. They should be safe from bullying, and they should also be safe from indoctrination into homosexuality. I mean, we're talking about kids that are graduating from wearing geranimals to having their sexuality compared to animals. I mean, how far are we willing to go with this when you consider that only 7% of the animal kingdom is monogamous in their sexual relationships. Is that what we're saying our kids should aspire to? I mean, this is really outlandish. But this is not about who should attend or who should speak. It's about who should set the agenda. And that's what's important to note here. As a co-sponsor, they're a part of setting the agenda. And it's hard to really grasp the idea that those who are working to redefine marriage can sit at the same table and discuss strategy with those who are trying to promote and protect traditional marriage. And that's really what's at the issue here.
Some would argue that that's a traditional value, that marriage is a value that the Family Research Council has held dear, and that that this is not a left-right issue, that this is now an issue that crosses across all sorts of party lines.
Well, it's not the redefinition of family and what it means, as all history has shown us, marriage between a man and a woman. That's not at debate among true conservatives.
The marriage issue is about granting special benefits, special affirmation to same-sex couples, to homosexual relationships.
But are people based, or their feelings about marriage based on religion?
No, I don't think that. I think that's a grave misconception that people have about this debate. Marriage is not simply a civil institution and not simply a religious institution. At its heart, marriage is a natural institution rooted in the order of nature itself. It is because it takes one man and one woman to make a child that we treat that relationship as something unique, because it is unique.
What happens to people who get married and don't have children? Or Larry King, who's on his 8th marriage and hasn't had children with 6 of his former wives?
Well, obviously...
Are you mandated to have kids if you get married?
You're not mandated to have kids if you get married, but it makes no sense to extend the benefits of marriage to a type of relationship that is incapable of ever creating children. That undermines the whole purpose of the institution, and it sends a message to society that no, children don't need a mother and father, and that's simply false. The social science shows that children do best when they have a mother and father.
Do you hate gay people? Are you anti-gay?
No, not at all. Not at all. What we work to do is to preserve the family, which is the core of society. And look, I spent the bulk of my adult life has been in standing up to those who would intimidate, who would seek to silence and terrorize others. I've been a Marine, I've been a police officer, I've worked in anti-terrorism, and if the left thinks by throwing out a few labels that they're going to see a white flag out in front of our office here in D.C., they're mistaken. We may run, but it'll be in the opposite direction that they want.
And you would like to see a retraction?
Well, well, first off, I think this is showing that they're a very marginal group. Yes, they should retract it, but I don't think it means anything with them putting out a label. And they even acknowledge that, well, this is the first mainstream group we've ever gone after. But I think they're on the defensive, and we're going to keep them on the defensive. We're going to see some things coming out in the next week or so that's going to show that a lot of Americans stand with us and the free speech that we represent and the freedom of religion, which I think they want to take away. And this issue is not going to go away. I think what you have is one judge who thinks he knows, and a district level judge, and an openly homosexual judge at that, who says he knows better than not only 7 million voters in the state of California, but voters in 30 states across the nation that have passed marriage amendments. This is far from over.
You mentioned this claim that he's openly homosexual. I'm not sure if that's in fact the case, but whether he is or isn't, what what bearing does that have on the case?
Well, that, according to the San Francisco Chronicle, that he is openly homosexual, one of 2 federal judges. And I think, you know, had this guy been say, an evangelical preacher in his past, there would have been cries for him to step down from this case. So I do think it has a bearing on the case. But you think this is not without precedent.
You think it's made his ruling skewed?
Well, I mean, you look at he ignored a lot of the social science in his opinion. But in Nebraska in 2005, there was a similar ruling by another federal district level judge. It was overturned in the 8th Circuit unanimously. So there is certainly not only based upon the social empirical data that's out there, but on the legal basis, this is a flawed decision, and as I said, it's far from over.
David Boies, the one thing you mentioned, that the judge spent a great deal of time on the facts of the case here. What's your response to Mr. Perkins?
Well, it's easy to sit around and debate and throw around opinions, appear appeal to people's fear and prejudice, cite studies that either don't exist or don't say what you say they do. In a court of law, you've got to come in and you've got to support those opinions. You've got to stand up under oath in cross-examination. And what we saw at trial is that it's very easy for the people who want to deprive gay and lesbian citizens of the right to vote to make all sorts of statements in campaign literature or in debates where they can't be cross-examined. But when they come into court and they have to support those opinions and they have to defend those opinions under oath and cross-examination, those opinions just melt away. And that's what happened here. There simply wasn't any evidence. There weren't any of those studies. There weren't any empirical studies. That's just made up. That's junk science. And it's easy to say that on television, but a witness stand is a lonely place to lie. And when you come into courts, you can't do that. And that's what we proved. We put fear and prejudice on trial, and fear and prejudice lost.
He asked the question, he asked their top lawyer, what harm would there be if gay couples are allowed to share in the love and commitment of marriage, the same love and commitment they have in their personal lives? And their top lawyer said, I don't know. And as the trial went forward, the evidence was put forward, the witnesses were there, and Judge Walker reviews them all, and what came out of the trial was there's not a single good reason for denying the freedom to marry to these committed couples.
When you were in the Marine Corps, you don't think you served with gays?
Oh, I have no question that I probably did. I did not.
And how
know.
are they a threat to national security?
Well, it's not an issue of whether or not gays. The current policy of don't
but
ask,
you said
don't tell
earlier it's an
allows.
issue of national security. So how is it an issue of national security?
Well, it is an issue of national security. If you have 30% of your force that's going to leave, and Secretary Gates has said you can vote with your feet. I'm sorry, it was Admiral Mullen said you can vote with your feet if you don't like the overturning of this policy. And if 30% of the force leaves, that obviously is a national security issue.
But do you think that
the same argument was when we had desegregation, and that was the same arguments they were saying
totally
that they would walk
issue.
away?
Peter, I don't want to discuss the moral standing on homosexuality, but on a legal basis, on a practical social basis, where same-sex marriage is already legal, why shouldn't service members be allowed to marry in military chapels?
Well, because of the Federal Defense of Marriage Act. The Federal Defense of Marriage Act, passed by overwhelming bipartisan majorities in 1996 and signed into law by President Clinton, declares that for all purposes under federal law, marriage is defined as the union of one man and one woman. However individual states may define it is irrelevant for purposes of federal law and the federal government. What's shocking here is that to have a federal employee, a federal official, declaring that the federal government will no longer obey federal law. This law is binding. The controversy is not an issue of timing. It's a question of obeying the law. And the Defense of Marriage Act is binding unless and until it is repealed. So I think that's the fundamental issue here.
And when you're looking at all the changes that are taking place, the legal challenges that are being served on DOMA right now, and even the Justice Department saying the Obama administration has said it's no longer going to defend DOMA. Do you predict an end to that? Do you see an end to that? I know that your organization has been pretty clear that it does not want the end of DOMA, but do you predict that there will be the end to it?
No, I believe that DOMA will be upheld by the courts because it's already been upheld by several federal courts, and I do not believe that there are the votes in Congress to repeal DOMA. I believe that that this law will continue to defend marriage and protect traditional marriage at the federal level for many years to come.
Do you think we should outlaw gay behavior?
Well, I think certainly
I'm just asking you, should we outlaw gay behavior?
I think that the Supreme Court decision in Lawrence v. Texas, which overturned the sodomy laws in this country, was wrongly decided. I think there would be a place for criminal sanctions against homosexual behavior.
So we should outlaw gay behavior?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, Peter Sprigg. We know your position. It's a clear one.